Okay, we're going to talk about the actual administration of an informal reading inventory, specifically the QRI, the qualitative reading inventory. And the reason that we spend a lot of time on this and that this is the assessment that we use is because it can give a very accurate picture of what a student is actually doing when they're reading text on their own. It gives us a picture of their word recognition as well as their comprehension. The nice thing is, once you know how to do this and you know the coding, you know the types of miscues and how to do this, is if nothing else, you can listen to someone read orally and diagnose, for lack of a better word, what's going on when they're reading. Is it word recognition? Are there a lot of miscues? If so, what specific types of miscues and so forth? If their reading is accurate, but their comprehension is not strong, okay, what's going on there? Is it lack of prior knowledge? Is it not knowing what the vocabulary actually means? Or is there some processing issues? So the informal reading inventory, which is the generic term for this type of assessment, allows you as the classroom teacher or the reading specialist, um, Title I reading person, RTI interventionist, whatever, to really get a good picture of a student's reading ability because you are looking at these various issues. And one thing that I do want to clarify that is a little bit different, or maybe interpreted differently when you read the actual directions and information in the QRI manual, which I don't require you to do. It's there as a resource because what I'm attempting to do is to teach you how to do a generic administration using an informal reading inventory. So whether you are using the qualitative reading inventory, the Cimaroli, not Woodcock, but well, my mind is blanking. But whatever informal reading inventory that you're using, you can use this particular process and you're going to get the results, the information that you need. But something, again, that I want to mention is in the QRI, it leads you to believe that if you're dealing with adult readers or high school readers, that you don't need to listen to them actually read orally. That makes no sense at all if you're trying to get a picture of their true reading ability and trying to figure out what exactly it is that's the barrier, the problem. If you don't listen to someone read orally, you cannot then determine that word recognition is not an issue. You must listen to them read orally to make that determination. When using an informal reading inventory, we are attempting to determine a student's independent reading level, which is the reading level that they can handle text on their own, their instructional level, what level are they going to most benefit from instruction, and their frustration level, which is the material when the material is too difficult for them to read, even with assistance. So we want to determine those three levels. So when we use an informal reading inventory, there are three components. There's word lists, which help us. The only reason to administer the word list is to help us be very efficient in determining where to start the student actually reading in the graded passages. And we want to make that determination based on what is the highest grade level of word list that the student received 100% correct on. So if they're reading and they read multiple word lists and the highest one, highest grade level that they received 100% on was second grade, and your student is a fourth grader, you definitely want to start them reading on a second a second grade level then, if that was where they received the 100%. And then you have them continue reading, moving up and reading higher and higher grade level passages until they reach their frustration level. And I always say that you don't necessarily have to do the math in between. You're going to know when your student reaches that frustration level because you're going to see it. They are going to visibly be frustrated. They're going to be a lot more miscues, a greater variety of miscues. You're going to see them struggling. You're going to see it in their body language, etc. So then you just stop. I always have extra passages on both ends with me. Normally, I mean, it would be great if we could be really efficient and only have to administer 3 grade levels. And the first one, the student would be independent, and then instructional, and then frustration. That doesn't happen very often. So it's always good to have extra graded passages ready to go. And if you start and you realize that, okay, the word list said they should be okay with this, but you realize it really is too difficult, go ahead and finish that, or it is not at their independent level. Go ahead and finish with that level, and you can move them back, because remember what they're going to actually see. The student copy of the passages does not have the grade levels on it. Only yours does. So you can work backwards to establish your independent level and then move forward again. Okay? So we're going to attempt here. Okay. The qualitative, this one, the pictures, the things we're going to look at comes from the Qualitative Reading Inventory 4. Obviously, the 6 is out now. I don't have a major issue with which one you use. They're minor changes with each. So again, we have the word lists, and then we move into the passages, which allow us to look at their word recognition, fluency, and then there is the comprehension component with each of these. Okay, so you're going to start with the word list, and regardless of what it says here, I always start with the pre-primer or primer level word list, the lowest word list that my informal reading inventory has available, regardless of the age level of the student. Because I have worked with adult readers who, yes, they could read all the words, but it was comprehension. Had I not started at the very beginning, I wouldn't have gotten the information that I really needed. And again, especially with elementary students, starting with that very basic primer level word list or pre-primer word list, it oftentimes for some of the students allows them to have some success and move up, and that feels good, which is not something that a lot of struggling readers have an opportunity to experience. Again, you can see what this says. I'm going to, with the word list, here's a guideline to kind of tell you, but here's the problem. I don't care with the word list if it is at a student's independent level, instructional level, or frustration level. It is a means to an end to help me determine where to start reading on the graded passages, because word lists, reading words in isolation is not what we as readers do. Most of us always read connected text, and so I don't care about this information. Okay, so this is what your sheets of the word lists are going to look like. And notice you've got the word list on the left, and the student will have on their copy the word list, and that's all they'll have. Is maybe they may have a couple of levels of word lists on their page. But yours, you're going to have these two columns here, identified automatically. That means as the students, when they start, and if they go lunch, celebrate, believe, and they're getting them correct right away, identifying them automatically, you can put a C or you can put a check mark, however it makes sense to you, so that you mark that they knew the word automatically. If they have to look at the word and kind of think about it, and they might try to sound it out, lunch, but they get it correct, then you're going to mark it in the identified column. Now, if you look here, when the student came to the word believe, the first thing they said was belief, and so we write that down. Now, it doesn't tell us that the student didn't self-correct. So they went right on from belief, and they kept moving down, and they were fine. Then they got to rough, and they said rug. And they said where. Tongue they had to think about. They did not know it automatically, so that is left blank. But they did figure it out, and they were correct in the end. Down here with removed, the student said removed, but then, they said, yes, they said removed, and then we've got, I'm not sure what, the SC should stand for self-corrected, but I'm not sure why they have it written out here. Okay, curious. Again, the student didn't know it. Over here, the word they came out with was curcus, which is still wrong. Said enemy for enemies, did not do anything with that. Entree for entrance. So when we go back and we look at this and we add these up, we add up how many did the student get correct automatically. That number goes here. Then how many did they get correct in this column? And that was 11. So we add those together. So they had 17 out of 20, which is 85%. So that is how you go through and figure out the word list. So 85% at third grade. I would still want to go lower with that student, obviously. Start lower than third grade, regardless of what level they are, grade level they are. Okay, then once we decide what grade level passage, we move to the actual graded passages. And this is what your examiner copy looks like. Now, we have this section called concept questions. And this is in a section to help us determine prior knowledge. What do they know about what we're going to be reading? It's also a narrative that they're going to be reading. So we ask them these questions, and we can score these. And there's a scoring rubric in the QRI. It's also up on D2L for you, whether or not they get 3, 2, 1, or 0 points. Obviously, if they're right on target, it's a 3. If they're close, it's a 2. And I know if they give an example, that's a little different. So the scoring rubric is there for you. And again, that's kind of information to just help you think about how they're doing with the comprehension and even the word recognition, because if it's a topic they're very knowledgeable about, we would expect that their oral reading would be stronger because they would know the vocabulary, or at least understand the vocabulary. So we look at how that plays back. Oh, sorry, I gotta go back and find my page here. Okay, here we go. So then once you've finished with the concept questions, then you have the student actually orally read to you. Now, I encourage you to you don't have to videotape it, but audio tape while they're reading so that you can go back and check your coding, because you're going to actually mark their miscues on this